So I'm going to start off by saying that I don't hate the CLG roster for 2022 preseason so far. And the fact that I really think this is kind of a roster, a budget roster, essentially, because it's clear that they have to recover from last year's botch with their entire budget, right? Because if you look at the names on paper before in 2021, it was actually somewhat of a semi-expensive roster. You had what was it? Finn, Broxa, Pobelter, Wild Turtle, and Smoothie. So all those names are gonna require a pretty decent chunk of change. So now you have to pivot in 2022 to be able to sign all these rookies and everything to make the budget actually work. Now, here's, I guess, the other side of it, which is that it's actually a pretty decent bet on the names that they went with. I can actually see the idea behind the entire roster. It's actually pretty solid if you're gonna bet on some rookies or some newer players, right? So I think all in all, both Greg Kim, which is he's the head of esports over at CLG, and then Jonathan McDaniel, the new guy who is the general manager for the League of Legends team. So I think both of these guys, did pretty well. And by the way, Greg Kim was also over at Evil Geniuses before too, and you could see how well that organization turned out for League of Legends. So I think all in all, yeah, they've done what they could with the pieces or probably the budget that was available to them. So this is a pretty decent roster. So we're looking at Jenkins, Contracts, Palafox, Luger, and Poom. So the one big problem that I have with this entire roster is the fact that it looks like, at least to me, that Contracts is going to have to be the leader, right? He's clearly the veteran guy on the team, and everyone else is kind of rookies, right? Like you have Jenkins and Palafox kind of have played a couple games, same with Poom, I guess. And then you have Luger, who's like from a different league. I think he's from like Turkey or something. So really, it's up to Contracts to kind of take the reins with this entire team, but he doesn't seem like that kind of a personality. Like whenever I've interacted with him in interviews or whenever I've seen him in interviews or even when you hear him on comms or whatnot, which I'll get to in a second about his style of comms, which I think is going to be problematic. But I just don't see him as like this big leader that's going to, lead the team and, help in review and kind of just walk and guide these guys through the entire game. So I think that's the biggest gaping hole within this entire roster. But let's go and from top to bottom with Jenkins. I thought he had a great showing over in Team Liquid when Alfari, had his whole debacle and everything with the coaching staff or with Jat. And so I think he played really well, actually. Had a phenomenal showing. His champion pool really wasn't like something that you could entirely poke holes in, which is great to see from a rookie. And he was just an all-around pretty good player. And in fact, he had some good highlights and whatnot. So I think this is the perfect pickup. I think if you're gonna bet on a rookie, then yeah, Jenkins is like a pretty secure bet. And so I think he would even do well in a team to where you don't have to be so frugal with your entire budget, right? Like he could easily fit in to a team to where you're looking to get into like top 4 playoffs, right? So I think this is a great pickup, and I'm glad to see that he's on an LCS team. Palafox, I thought Palafox wasn't that bad on FlyQuest. Now, when I say he wasn't that bad, I mean I didn't think he was that great though either, because just from his entire play style, he wasn't the most absolutely aggressive, but also too, whenever he went aggressive, he would often get punished and whatnot. So he did have some dope ass games on Akali, which was cool. But other than that, he just left me a little bit unimpressed right? It was like that was, one of his badass picks, and he did stomp with it. But other than that, I really wasn't impressed by him. So I'm looking to see if he will shape up to be a better player. I still think he has some growing pains to go through as far as, being at LCS top tier caliber. But I don't necessarily hate the pickup. I think if you're trying to go for, North American talent and you're looking at the academy system or whatnot, I don't think he's that bad of a pick. I think it's a decent idea. So I don't really fault CLG for going with this, but if they did have means to a better budget, which I assume they don't, which is why they're going with this roster, then it would have been nicer to see, a like higher power level mid laner, if you will, right? Luger, I'm just gonna say I've never heard of this guy. Like really, I've heard of him from Academy and 100 Thieves, and I know that 100 Thieves Academy did get fourth in Summer Split, and then they got first at Proving Grounds, beating Team Liquid twice, in fact, because there was like a lower bracket system. So that is very impressive, which that's Team Liquid Academy. And Team Liquid Academy won Summer Academy playoffs. So you have to look at that and be like, okay, there's got to be something to the 100 Thieves, Academy roster. And from what I hear, this Luger guy is pretty fucking good. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm not going to make any judgment of that, really. And I want to jump into Poom because I think he had a really unfair showing on 100 Thieves. He was just thrust right in, right? And I'm talking about the LCS team. He was thrust right in because, they were having some trouble. This was in 2020, right? And they were having some trouble with the roster, and just things weren't going right at all. So he was essentially tossed in and told to just, swim from the deep end. So I don't think that's really a fair assessment of the guy, although he did not really perform that well anyways. And it should be noted that he is also coming from 100 Thieves Academy. So that already means that Luger and Poom have synergy, right? So that's going to help massively for them to, kind of ease into the LCS and whatnot. I think this will be a way better experience for them, in fact. But problem might come to where maybe they are too distant from the rest of the team because, they have their relationship as bot laners and as duos, and they're coming into this new environment and especially the LCS. So that could be something that you want to watch out for. But I want to go back to Contracts because Contracts, we all know that he's this aggressive jungler. He was basically what I like to call like the pre-Blabber. He was Blabber before Blabber was even in the LCS. That's basically what his style is. Just, a little bit more tuned down. But I think the big problem is in this entire lineup is that who is going to keep Contracts in check? Because as I said before, he is like Blabber light essentially. So who's going to keep a guy like that in check? Because his style, sometimes he does plays that he shouldn't be doing. And, like being too aggressive, trying to counter jungle when he shouldn't, being on, the wrong side of the map when he shouldn't, or going for plays that he shouldn't. And so if he is the veteran voice on the entire team, who has the authority to tell him no? You got to have someone to at least be able to balance that out. And if Contracts is your veteran guy, it's like, well, dude, he's super aggressive. So, and now he's the veteran. Like, this is one of the worst situations I can think of as far as, the hierarchical structure of what shot calling would be, or, who would be the leader within the team. So I think that's going to be probably the biggest fault on this. And this, I guess, iteration of CLG, or rather this iteration of Contracts too, it can go downhill very fast. And that's what I'm afraid of in looking at this roster and maybe how it's constructed. And so if we go over to the coaching staff with ThinkCard, been in the scene for years. Before he was a player, he was He was a jungler, I think for like CLG or something back in the day. But and he's a long tenured guy, right? So I have no problems or qualms with ThinkCard. I think he really is a little bit too kind of stale with a lot of his drafts or a lot of his ideas. Although I will give a little bit of credit. I think he was there during the time he was coaching FlyQuest when Santorin was on the team. And Santorin used to do all these fucking crazy, ridiculous pathings, which were actually really smart. And Santorin is just a smart pather in and of himself. But I would like to think that the coaching staff had some influence on that. So I'll give him a little bit of credit for that. And then you have Croissant. Now, Croissant, I think he is like one of these pretty underrated guys in terms of just coaches in general or minds for the game. Whenever I hear this guy talk about the game, he's very intelligent. He's able to break it down and kind of speak, I guess, at a higher level than like most people that I actually hear in terms of when they talk about the game. So he has a high sophistication and high mind about the game, which can help fill some gaps in and also help these younger players. I think this will be a great opportunity for him to actually prove his worth and show that like he can actually massively improve players if given the chance and if given some young players. So I think this pairing itself of just the veteran voice of ThinkCard, who can put in some regiment and put in some structure, and then you have Croissant, which can teach higher level ideas and also introduce some new things that maybe these players haven't thought of. So overall, the entire construction of this roster and the title of this video of how I say CLG have the development excuse is the fact that they do, and the fact that overall CLG can do no wrong this year. Because if you look at it, it's a budget roster, it's a rookie roster, and everyone is all yelling about North American talent and shit and how we should give academy players more opportunities within the LCS, and like that's all fine. And so it's going to segment the entire like fan opposition, right? Because everyone hates CLG right now. Well, now if you introduce all these rookie players, it's like, okay, well, now can you hate CLG, right? Like they're just helping out the North American talent, so like can you really hate them? And so it's going to divide, I guess, the hatred for CLG to where it's going to be one small subset of a group will be like, well, they are having rookies, give them a tryout and whatnot. So although they are doing bad, at least it's giving these North American rookies some time, in order to at least somewhat get their feet wet within the LCS. And then there's going to be probably the overwhelming majority that are just going to be like, well, CLG is shit. I don't know why they constructed this roster, et cetera, et cetera. But they're still going to win over some people of just like, well, at least they gave the rookies the opportunity, right? So it's not going to be as harsh as, if they were to suck again with, a roster like they had last year. So really, I think CLG can kind of do no wrong in this instant, and it should take some heat off of them. But I just find it funny that they actually went this route. I'm not saying that they did it just because, to take some heat off or whatever, but I do find it funny that because they're probably on a budget, this is the result of that, and they just kind of hard indexed on it anyways, which if you looked at what happened with, it was Golden Guardians, I believe, that had all rookies. I want to say it was Golden Guardians that had like a full rookie lineup. It was just like, well, what are you doing? That's a really bad idea. So you have no one to lead the entire team. And oh yes, and that was with Stixay as being the veteran, right? He was the only veteran. But Stixay doesn't have the personality in order to be, an in-game leader or, to just have the higher leadership qualities in order to, help these rookies out. So like that didn't work. So this could be the same repeat for CLG, which is what I'm concerned about. And especially given Contrax's play style, it doesn't seem compatible with an entirely rookie roster. So I'm curious to see how this is going to work out. I don't think it's the worst idea ever. So, I guess this is improvement for CLG. But I do not expect them to actually place anywhere near like high. I would say that this team is probably not even going to be top 5, but as long as they're 7th or 6th, I think that is kind of a W for them, at least, because obviously that's an improvement for their rankings, but also that it gives some exposure and some time for these rookies to develop. So I think, they aren't going to be winning anything spring split for sure. But it'll be kind of exciting to see exactly how this all works out.